Good morning. I trust everyone had a wonderful weekend. And if you didn't, it's your fault. Bow with me. Gracious Heavenly Father, here we are again, back at your capital, hopefully doing your business. Thank you for the weekend. Lord, get with Mother Nature and let's see if we can ease off on this week. Provide us safe travel to and from for the rest of the week. Let us do things that please you. Let us always realize that your grace and mercy is what makes us different. Lead and direct us. In Jesus' name, amen. For those of you who don't know how this works, brevity is... Yeah, you might get your bill on if you are kind of brief. Then you might not do, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This started out, this House Bill 869, LC 410149. It started out, it was sponsored by me and Representative Powell, Representative Roberts, Representative Kaiser, and Representative Bell. And then the committee had a change, so this is a substitute. It's a motorcycle bill, but it's not the one with the helmets or anything like that. It's a safety item, however. If you look at the easiest way to look at it is look down at the bottom about line 22. If a traffic control device or signal is inoperative due to the lightweight design of a motorcycle or other motor vehicle, and the driver has remained stopped for not less than 60 seconds, then the driver may treat such traffic control device or signal as a stop sign. And what that means is that when you come to a stop sign, you stop, look both ways, and wait and be sure it's clear before you proceed through the intersection. And this, I've noticed that where they're paving the Highway 4119, Georgia 8 through Spalding County, and they don't put in the signals in the concrete, in the asphalt until after the last punch line is on the thing, and so it happens a lot of times that the thing doesn't get triggers, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about one that's been there all the time, but the machine does not have enough weight to trigger it. So, and I think most of us have seen times about midnight when nobody's coming either way, and a traffic signal sits there a long time, that somebody doesn't ease through it safely, and not be held to some mechanical device. So that's what the bill does. I'll be glad to try to answer any question.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Chairman Yates, who has the liability issue if a motorcycle pulls out and is hit by a car? Who has liability on that particular issue?
The lawyers tell me that there's another part of the law that says that the motorcycle rider is responsible.
The motorcycle rider is responsible if he pulls out, he or she pulls out.
Yes, if he causes an accident, he is responsible. So because he's supposed to go out very carefully.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, never mind. I got one more, Mr. Yates.
I'm just Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious about Representative Yates' accomplishments through the years and want to know when you began being a biker.
What?
When were you a biker? I'm admiring all your accomplishments through the years.
Yeah, I'll explain that.
No, sir, I'm teasing you.
I was on. This bill is definitely not to help me because I've flown an airplane, but not a motorcycle. But
I was just waiting for the next phase.
well,
of your life.
I got an explanation for that. I was on a motorcycle one time, and I promised the Lord that if He would let me off safely, I would not ever test Him again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, and I attest to the fact that I'm 92, so it must have worked.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no answer to following Chairman Yates, but I'll do the best. I have House Resolution 1159 and 1158. They're on your blue sheet in the open rule. They both came out of committee unmodified, so there's just the one version, LC 103, 134, and I believe 133 for both resolutions. They're exactly the same. Two resolutions. One's a House resolution, one's a joint resolution, and they are urging resolutions, but they are urging the EPA to listen to states and give us primacy in dealing with the CO2, the carbon rules. They just last fall issued carbon rules for new plants that make it impossible to build a new coal-fired plant in the United States. The rules are coming for existing plants, and we fear without the states being involved in that process that it will damage irrecoverably our ability to generate electricity across the Southeast and across the United States. I know, Mr. Chairman, normally these urging type things wait till later in the session, but I'd ask the committee's indulgence. The rules close the middle of March where comments are made. We'd like to get this package put together along with the Attorney General, the Governor, and give the Senate the opportunity so that Georgia can weigh in on this very important issue. I'd answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 849, modified open rule, about halfway down the page. It's a little lease wear and use waiver. Under strict interpretation of the law currently, this is considered an insurance product. Historically, the Insurance Commissioner's Office has not dealt with this product, but could be compelled to do so in the future. We're asking this to be set up the same as we did for GAP a few years ago. Provides that these excess wear and use waivers shall not be considered insurance. It provides for a definition in the bill, and it sets up consumer protection and rules for the sale and use of these waivers. And that's what the bill does.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all's support.
Mr. Nimmer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here for Representative Coomer this morning, who is presenting in another committee to ask for two of his bills, House Bill 516 and House Bill 758. And have any questions, I'll do the best I can on his behalf to answer them.
I would ask on House Bill 758, since that's my court, what are y'all doing to me?
Well, let me see. I think it came at a request of your DA from what Rep. Coomer. It changes the Bartow County court calendar requested by the DA from Bartow.
I knew that.
I figured, sir, but I was trying to do the best I could to answer.
Yes, sir. Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say there is a amendment which we offer as a floor amendment. The court also asked to change the effective date from May 1, 2014 to January 1, 2015. That came in after the bill came up from our committee.
On 758?
Yes, sir. And that is something requested by your court, Mr. Chairman, as far as they want to change the dates of their sessions in Bartow County.
Okay. So that we won't have any confusion, Mr. Coomer should get those, or ever whose amendments they are, should be on.
We're going to have to do it. We had it as a substitute. Keith said we need to do it as a really amendment, floor amendment.
Modified open.
I'm going to ask that we hold up 758, Mr. Chairman. I'll get it done tomorrow. Unless you prefer to have it go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead with it.
Okay.
And then.
We'll have it on the floor.
Okay. Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question on House Bill 516.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this for employees in the Regents retirement plan who elected at the time of when they became employees to not participate in the defined benefit plan, but rather a newer blended plan, to change their mind and thus increase the number of employees that are on the defined benefit plan in the state?
I don't know. I don't know, madam. I'll refer that question to Coomer as soon as I get out of here and talk to him.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe that on that retirement plan, it's the optional retirement plan where they were investing their own monies and they were basically not intending to stay somewhere very long, and they were getting their own retirement, and most of them set up their own plans, and then I guess we pay good enough that they want to stay now and they don't want to go somewhere else. But to get them in, because their ability to invest is somewhat restricted, and when we have the investment expertise that we've got in both the TRC and the employees retirement plan, it's an opportunity for them. It's a no cost is the way I understand it. They're just going to put their money that they've got. Most of them took a hit, I understand, back in 2005, 2008, and give them an opportunity to come under the state's plan so that they could get the investment help that they need. Is that right, Mr. Nimmer?
It sounded great. Yes, sir. That's exactly what
I'm
thought.
looking for a little help on this one. Come on, somebody in retirement? Tommy? Did I explain nearly right? Did I explain nearly right? Thank you, Mr. Nimmer.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Harrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. First page, first bill, House Bill 762. It adds active sanitation workers to the Spencer Pass law that's in existence today, which just requires motorists to use due care when approaching or passing one of these vehicles.
In other words, if you get behind one on a double, yes.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain how this changes current law and why we need it?
Well, current law provides this same responsibility for motorists with DOT workers, fire trucks, emergency vehicles. So sanitation truck would have to be active working. The lights would have to be blinking. The people working the truck are typically outside of the vehicle. And quite frankly, in 2012, sanitation workers are the fourth measured by fatalities per 100,000. Over half of the injuries to sanitation workers actually occur when they're on the roadway outside of a truck. So this would just, it would require the motorist to slow down. If it was legal to pass, to do so, and if it was not, be prepared to stop. It makes it a misdemeanor traffic fine up to a maximum of $500 should someone be cited.
Use the same language that we have in law for the other contract workers.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dickey.
The modified structured, no changes other than class.
Any questions? Hardest working man in show business and at the Capitol, Mr. Jaspers.
Thank you, Chairman Meadows and Rules Committee. I'm here today to ask for House Bill 875. It's LC 0185S. It was passed out of the Public Safety and Homeland Security last week. This bill mostly addresses where law carry license can carry their weapon, removes from bars and churches from unauthorized areas, expands government buildings where one can carry, allows that no fingerprints upon renewal, thereby saving Georgians $45, includes Chairman Battle's bill on the schools and Chairman Powell's bill on airports. It also includes, in honor of Bobby Franklin, an executive power where the executive branch cannot confiscate weapons in state of emergency. And there are lots of other things too, but those are the key parts. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not in public safety, but I'm sure you've had so many questions, so I'll make mine very brief. Is there a problem with the current governor? You think he might clean out the guns? I was just curious as to, do you think that the present governor would clean out the guns? He would not act rationally?
Oh, absolutely not. This is maybe for 20 years from now or 40 years from now. Yes, sir. He's asking about the executive powers part of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I request your favorable consideration on this bill. Thank you.
I got one question.
One more.
Pardon me.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, the portion that says when you renew, you don't have to have new fingerprints. Are you not concerned that even though my status is one thing, when I first get my gun license, over time, my capacity and ability might change? So I heard money, but what about those fingerprints?
Question. We're not going to have that. Doesn't change, but you're absolutely right. Someone's status, as in their criminal background or mental health, does change. We're not changing that. When you have a renewal license or a temporary renewal done, you'll
Mr. Fry.
Basically, it exempts certain nonprofit corporations from the mortgage loan originating license, brings our state law in line with the SAFE Act, and will basically allow us to create more housing opportunities for hardworking citizens in the state.
No questions. Thank you. Ms. Brody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I have House Bill 794, which is a compact among the states to create a constitutional amendment and call for an Article 5 convention to vote on the constitutional amendment. And it's to get the federal government to balance the budget and limits their ability to raise the debt ceiling. So I'll take questions.
Any questions for Ms. Brody?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Okay. This, Mr. Williamson is going to bring 610. I told him he could go ahead and bring it today. It's on the yellow sheet. We skipped it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am here to ask for your consideration of LC 371711S, substitute to House Bill 610. It's a, quote, public adjuster bill that clarifies a better clarification between public adjusters, the representation of the policyholders, and it comes with both industry and the support of an attorney, our legal community as well. I'd like to ask for your favorable consideration of this legislation.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Golick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for House Bill 840. This is a Department of Insurance bill that they've requested. We've had some increased licensure requirements over the years on the enforcement ability of the department to levy penalties for noncompliance hasn't caught up with those new licenses or new licensees. Additionally, there's a quirk in the law that prevents the commissioner from levying a fine for noncompliance of someone who doesn't have a license, but they should have had a license. It only allows them to go ahead and enforce what arguably only allows them to enforce where a license is in effect, as opposed to someone who should have had a license but doesn't, and this cures that.
Any questions? Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two bills. It's HB 477, Modified Open Rule. It's a retirement bill that allows a person who was in the judicial retirement system to transfer that credit into the employee retirement system. This is a bill that passed 2 years ago, passed the House, but got hung up in the Senate on day 40, and so it's a continuation of that bill.
Any questions on that bill? Next one.
All right, the next one is HB 820. Under current law, a condominium association can sue a developer for damages that the developer caused by faulty construction in the common areas. But what is happening is that the developers are putting into the condominium documents before they turn it over to the association a provision that says the association cannot sue the developer for any faulty construction. And what this bill does is it says that those the right to sue cannot be waived in condominium documents that were entered into prior to the turning over of the association to the members of the association.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your sheet under Modified Open Rule, HB 842, this was the bill that I was asked to put forward by the Supreme Court. And what it does is, in a nutshell, is you got people who are incarcerated. There's almost impossibility to get an affidavit, a pauper's affidavit done, which has to be signed by a notary, and this is just to allow those type cases to proceed without the need of having the affidavit itself. Certainly if somebody's incarcerated there, usually in a pauper state. I'd be glad to answer any questions on that bill. House Bill 842.
Next one.
One other bill, just to quickly, since Mr. Weldon is not here this morning, again, ask for a Senate Bill 125. Do you want to take any Senate bills now, Mr. Chairman, or you want to wait to hold those?
You can speak for it, but they're going to be held.
It is going to be held. It's a good bill in the sense that we are putting into our code some provisions to prevent the change by case law of our tort law on trespass as it currently exists. There has come to being a legal treatise called Prosser on Torts, 3rd edition, and the authors of that have found fit to try to open up the obligations and duties of property owners for additional protection to a trespasser, which we deem not only unnecessary but ill-advised for property owners. So we're cutting it off.
Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask for HB 750, a bill presented by Representative Fry, which would allow nonprofit organizations that engage in providing housing to serve as, to be exempted from the mortgage loan originator licensing requirements. This would benefit organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, who are being captured unnecessarily by some of our licensure requirements. I'd also like to put my name beside SB 23, the Stacey Nicole English Act. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. What we're going to do, we're going to set the calendar. We're going to set. I missed it. The next legislative day. Just in case, and I'll see y'all Friday, but that's okay. But that's okay. Under modified open, HB 477. Any opposition? Modified open. HB 516. Any opposition? It's on. Under modified open, HB 758. Any opposition? It's on. Mr. Willard. Put it. Yep. It's modified open, so you'll do it on the floor. Under modified open, HB 840. Any opposition? It's on. Under modified open, HB 849. Any opposition? Since there's so much uncertainty, that's going to be it. Wait a second. I lied. Mr. D. They want to put it back on for the, under modified structure, HB 773. Any opposition? Okay. Mr. Golett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to Rule 33.3, I'd ask for debate to be limited on both House Bill 837, which was postponed from Friday to today, as well as House Bill 714, debate to be limited on both bills to 1 hour each, time to be apportioned equally by the Speaker.
Have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Ms. Abrams.
Mr. Chairman, while I understand the urge to restrict debate, HB 714 did not allow testimony from opponents to the bill during its first hearing, nor was testimony allowed on the second day of testimony. In addition, this is a critical bill that affects a number of Georgians, and I would ask that we use this power in very limited fashion. HB 714 is an important bill, and I think it deserves robust debate. And that has been denied several times to the opponents of the bill.
Well, I believe that 2 hours discussion plus the opening and closing is plenty of time for everybody to get their 1 hour plus the open. Mr. Lindsay.
Just a correction to my friend, the minority leader. There was testimony taken on HB 714 in the subcommittee. Both sides were able to fully discuss that. The committee followed its normal path, which is to allow a testimony in the subcommittee, but to not have additional testimony in the full committee. I was there.
We have a motion on.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lindsay has expressed what I was planning to say, and in fact, there was 22 people gave testimony on the first day in subcommittee.
Ms. Abrams.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to both the chairman and the representative, adequate notice was not given to a number of persons about attending and testifying, which is why I was making this request. We should, I believe, as a body, provide every opportunity for public debate on legislation. I certainly respect the will of the chair to determine that we will not do so, but I think it's very important for the record for it to be noted that adequate notice was not given, and that indeed a number of persons who would have come to that hearing were not afforded opportunity of adequate notice to travel from Valdosta and other places in the state. And so while certainly on paper there was opportunity, there's been a very loud and raucous opposition to the fact that there has been adequate opportunity for opponents to debate the bill, which is why I made my request. Thank you, sir.
The only people that get to debate the bill will be on the floor of the House, and I think, Ms. Abrams, that you are more than adequate to give their opinions. Again, we've got a motion on the floor to limit debate. All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That's it.